We're so excited to have all of you that are joining us today. We have a really great topic. As we're waiting for a few more people to roll in, I would love to have you guys comment. Let me know in the chat box where you're watching from. We always love to see where everyone is all over the place. We're here in San Luis Obispo at headquarters. KK at Hart, I believe, is in Las Vegas, right, KK? Yeah, okay. All right. Heather's from Boston. We've got someone from Minneapolis, New Jersey. Where else are you guys at? Love to hear. Brooklyn, New York. Welcome from Brooklyn. Dallas. Nate from Atlanta. We got some Texas. We have an Angelique from Ontario. Knoxville. Emily. Teresa's from Miami. Teresa. We're excited to have you guys here today. This is a topic that we're passionate about, that KK is passionate about, and that we know all of you and even ourselves oftentimes need help with this. So with that, today's webinar is maximize your website conversions using MindBody tools for your business. If you guys have questions and comments, we highly encourage you to put those in. For those of us streaming on Facebook, you can comment in the comments. But for those of you joining us today through the webinar on Zoom, there's a little Q&A box. We'll be checking those and taking time to answer those at the end of the presentation. And then last but not least, we will be recording today's webinar. So if for some reason you missed something, we'll be sending that over to you guys. So it is now my pleasure to introduce KK. Hey KK, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, we're so excited. I'll hand it over to you and let you get started.
Yeah, thanks everybody for logging in from all over. We got Eastern time zone. I think we heard some Central time zone, and those of us here in Pacific and wherever you are. I know this is a really important time of the year for you to take time out to maximize any element of your business in December of 2018 is very impressive. So kudos to you for being here. I'll tell you just a little bit about me, and then this is all about providing value for you today. And so I'm going to dive right in. In case you don't know me, I'm a certified MindBody business coach and consultant. Been doing this for quite a while. I've been in the industry for 15 years as a coach and consultant, and just like you, I own and operate businesses in this space on the fitness, beauty, wellness realm. What I'm really passionate about is helping you to take your business to the next level, and I think, as Katrina alluded to, it's one of the biggest areas of opportunity for next year. Website and conversion are the conversations that you're going to be wanting to have more often with yourself, with your team, but more importantly, it's the game changer that I believe that will take your business to the next level. So I've got a lot of experience in this area, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So just to go back one level, let me give you an idea of an agenda. What can you expect from today? Like I said, I know this is precious holiday time, family time, and certainly time to get your business ready for 2019. So I want to set the agenda up front. I want to give you the value up front. And then, of course, you'll get the slides, and you can always send me questions after the fact. So very quickly, I want to go through easy changes. What are the things that you can do on your own tomorrow to make changes to improve your website, and especially your client experience, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I'm going to give you some hacks to drive traffic to your website. That's a catchphrase, but really all it means is to get people interested in what you have to offer and bring them to their first connection to you, which is your website, before they ever meet you, before they ever come through your four walls, regardless of the type of business that you are. Your website is their first glance into that. How amazing that so many of us in small business overlook that opportunity and the opportunity to improve it on a regular, ongoing basis. And that's what we're talking about today. And then finally, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks, help you really think ahead with online marketing. There's a lot of working parts, and I know it always feels like maybe if you're not an expert in this area, that there's almost too much to cover. So what I'm hoping to do is give you quick bites, quick things that you can do and work towards. And then, of course, I'm going to really focus on how to utilize your MindBody software system to effectively do those things, right? To work through optimizing your website and improving your client experience overall with online marketing. So that's a lot, but I think we can get there. So let's dive in. First, we're going to cover at a top level easy changes to improve your website and client experience. Now, what that means for you is that most of these things can be done either on your own, depending on the way that your website is set up, or with someone who's a bit more knowledgeable. So maybe you have someone who's created the website for you, or perhaps someone on your team that's quite proficient, whether you're using a WordPress site. I know Squarespace has become very popular, Wix Live Edit, any of those sites. This should be fairly easy to do. And again, I'll always take your questions at the end. So at a high level, I'm going to walk through the top 10, and I'm going to give you examples for many of them. Number 1 is utilize white space. Number 2, optimize your page speed. Then use attractive calls to action. 4 is one that's kind of an interesting thing. I'm going to talk very specifically about use hyperlink differentiation. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. I'll break it down for you. And segment key information with bullet points, make it easy for people to see, kind of like what you're seeing right now on the screen. Using images wisely. Include well-designed and well-written headlines. You know, the headline is actually the first insight that someone makes into your site, and actually, many times they don't read beyond the headlines. So between using really good imagery with your images and videos, and then really having a headline that speaks directly to them, clear about call to action, you can be very successful with very minimal content on your website. Keeping website pages consistent. I want to show you what that looks like and give you an idea of maybe how you can improve your website based on that. Catching 404s and really just thinking about client experience here. You know, there's one thing that I really believe in is that oftentimes we don't use our website the way an end user would use our website, meaning someone who is likely brand new, do not know you, do not know your business. And so we're not quite seeing the nuances and the things that give them hiccups when it comes to making that buying decision, which we all know we want them to do. And then finally, being responsive and mobile friendly. You know, I'll say it's probably the most relevant in the last number of years has been the fact that being a responsive site means that people can view it on a cell phone, they can view it on a desktop computer. But I want to put this bug in your ear up front. 70 to 90% of people viewing your website are viewing it on a small device, meaning a cell phone, a tablet. So it's really important, you know, if you took nothing else away from this, if your website is not just mobile friendly, but responsive to that, meaning when I click on something with my finger, it responds as quickly, as agile, and as succinctly as it does on desktop, you're going to lose your client experience, and you likely may lose your clients. So we'll talk about ways to make that easy for you. Let's dive in with use of white space. This is actually an example of it on your screen now. As you can see, there's minimal text, there's a large picture, but really utilize the white space. Don't make it so much so that your website has a bunch of white space, a little bit of text, and a little bit of images, but really maximize what clients are seeing. If you think about the wellness industry on the whole, we have a major hurdle to overcome, right? It's the first step and keeping them, retention. And that first step is really where your website has a lot of impact, right? It's someone's first chance to get to know you. And so oftentimes, you know, in the world we live in today and in years to come, before they ever walk up to ask questions and walk into your business, before they ever even call or ask a friend for their experience, they're going to your website. So your website really needs to use that time to get to know them, nurture a relationship. The second, and it's actually often under talked about, is utilizing page speed as a tool. Now, a little known fact is that when Google is searching your website for search engine, or even when Facebook and Instagram are sending people to your website, they're looking at the page speed as part of their algorithm. An algorithm basically says that they're deciding and detecting what is the best place to send this client if they weren't found organically, meaning if they didn't come to you naturally. And so whether you're running ads or just posting content, you actually can have a better client experience by having a fast page speed, which means when they click to load it, it comes up very quickly. You'll probably remember an experience, and it may not be too long ago, when you clicked on a website and it took a few seconds to load, but those seconds felt like minutes. And the average client experience actually decreases so much. Many of them abandon your site because of that. So an easy way to find out if your site is up to snuff is to use a free website. It's called Pingdom. I gave you a little screenshot of it here, but you can actually enter your URL, test it from wherever you are in the world, and it will give you a breakdown as to, you know, what's going on with the back end of your site. Are there pages that need optimizing, and what to do about it? I'll give you a quick tip. Oftentimes what loads slowest is large files, pictures. videos that are not optimized through YouTube, so they're not through links, they're actually downloaded and embedded into your website. And those are really easy things that we can do, right? You can use a image compressor. You can use something to take your picture and truncate it, make it smaller with regards to pixelation, so that it can be seen easier on your page while still keeping the same imagery and aesthetic so that it looks good to the web's eye. So that's a really easy fix, and actually a very important fix, as algorithms are constantly changing, and especially when it comes to Facebook and Google. I'm sure you're hearing about how they decide to send people to your website, and this is one of those key factors that you can change. Another is to segment key information with bullet points. Here's a great example of a very simple website page, right? You're looking at a screen right now that's basically just a PowerPoint screen, but it's the same idea. To make this easy for you to digest and really simple to regurgitate, it's important that you segment the things that really matter so that it speaks directly to your end user, and they don't have to look between the lines and maybe read an entire paragraph to get your key point. The second is using your images wisely. Now, here's a great example of a site that I feel like in an instant, you're able to know what kind of business this is and whether or not you're interested. Whether or not you resonate with this image probably depends on whether or not you're their target client, right? But I can tell you, in the neighborhood that this business is based, with the style of wellness that they provide, a yoga studio, I think they speak very clearly to their target audience. And so I think there's a difference between using images just to use images and using them wisely. If you're a bombastic, dynamic yoga studio in the middle of a very ethnically diverse area, this really speaks to you, and that's exactly what they are. So when you think about images, think less about what makes sense to you, maybe the business owner, the manager, and think more about your target client, right? If I were to look at myself and a picture and imagery of myself on your website, if I am your target client, I resonate more with that. So that doesn't mean that you can't have diversity. In fact, it's important to have diversity, but it's also important to really understand, one, who is that target client, and two, am I speaking to them? Whether it's visually, like you are right now seeing, or is it in the way that you speak to them, which we'll get to. Another great example of how to speak to your client more clearly on your website is to use hyperlink differentiation. Now that sounds like a really big ask of you, but it's actually quite simple. When you go to see a website, oftentimes they'll link to other things, right? So maybe you will link to neighborhood, like-minded businesses that are non-competitive in your area. But be clear when something is a link and when something is just something to read. So utilizing a hyperlink, usually you'll see it as a blue text, or you can change it to brand to match your site. So if your site, for instance, is like this, maybe their hyperlink is like a grayish color, maybe an orange color to match their background, but it's very clear that if they were to click on something, like say about here, that it's different, it's something clickable. And that helps your client experience, because oftentimes in our industry, our websites are a bit busy. And so the best practice is to make them less busy, but then as you do, make it clear what you want the client to do. And that's what hyperlink differentiation can do for you. Another very important element of your website is call to action. Using attractive calls to action means staying positive versus negative, and really using that welcoming text. So for instance, when we think again about the psychology of selling, right? You think about the imagery that you need to get someone interested and excited to come in to see you. You have to, one, know your target client, right? We have to know what makes them tick, what's exciting to them, what's important to them. But I think equally as important is knowing how to welcome them in. Now, let me say this as a colleague today. In our industry, it's something that's such a disconnect. We spend all of our time and our efforts building up these amazing businesses that are all about people improving their lives, right? Whether physically, emotionally, in any way. And then we kind of lose it on the welcome part. Let me show you an example of a really unique, attractive, and yet authentic call to action. Actually, a website that I love. This studio, you can see just from a 3-second glance, is a yoga studio. They do a lot of different things. You can actually see that they also do different formats, such as bar. But then if you see the call to action, it's very clear, right? And it's very unique to their value proposition. Get on your mat. It's clear, it's concise, it's warm and inviting, and more importantly, it's branded, which means it's true to who they are. It's not just a phrase. It's not just a, come see us. It's not just contact us. It's like, here's what we really care about doing. We care about bringing yoga to you and making it so that you are excited to get on your mat. So this is a very directive call to action, which is what I love about it. But thinking again about your target client, maybe your target client doesn't need such a clear, beginner focused, distinctive call to action. Maybe they just need a all are welcome, right? Maybe they just need to know that at their fitness level, their ability to take your classes is okay. Maybe if you're a beauty-based business, that they need to know, like, the first step is the consultation. So let them know that. Put a phone number. You can put a contact us. There's a million ways to do it. But my recommendation is that your attractive call to action is throughout your website. So not just on your website landing page, not on the home page, but every element of the site, the about, the classes, the schedule. If you have a teacher training, if you've got the contact us page, use that consistently so people can really understand your value proposition all at the same time. Using really well-designed and attractive headlines, just again, it ties in that client experience. Let's go back to that website for a moment. There's something called the blink test. Within 3 seconds, you have the ability to get impact from either social media or from your website, or even from other forms of media, like maybe if you were featured in a magazine. 3 seconds is not a long time. And so it's really important that within a moment, not only can they see what you have to offer, right, with regards to visually, not only do they need an effective call to action, but it's really important to really have headlines that make sense so that they know exactly what you're expecting of them and of their user experience. Another great concept is to keep your website pages consistent, which means, when you're thinking of the birth of a website, it's really like a home. And although we may not all have the same idea of how a home should be designed, I think we could probably all agree that every room in the home has some synergy. So to give you an example of a site that I think does this really well is the site that kind of shows you the different elements and benefits of what they bring to the table. They actually also give a really awesome call to action, right? Why do you sweat? They're an infrared sauna business. And then more importantly, everything is really integrated, right? The sweat drop is part of their logo. It's also a part of each of their benefits and value adds. And again, they're speaking very clearly with regards to how they set their headlines and their headings, right? That's the benefits that you see here, but it's very branded. It's very clear who their business is, what they're about, and kind of the imagery that you would expect from coming in. And actually a great side note is the business inside looks just like the website, which is a really cool thing if you're able to do. So this imagery, this coloring, the logo, all of this is tied into even the physical space, which is a pretty cool call to action. A couple others. Be responsive and mobile friendly. I touched on this earlier, but I think in the world we live in today, it's not just an imperative, it's a game-changing experience to make it so that a client feels comfortable to make a buying decision from their phone, from their small device. I can remember even, a few years ago where the data would support that clients would visit from the mobile device, but they would make the action, meaning to buy a class, to set up a blow dry, they would actually do that from desktop. That is completely changed. So if you're not currently, make it easy for people to take action on your site. The intro offer now. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment using some MindBody tools like Branded Web, but make sure that's in the forefront of your mind, because as 2019 is coming around the corner and I'm looking at 2020 as a game-changing year for mobile, I think this is a really key area that, again, you can very easily affect. And then the last, on this page anyway, is the Catcher 404. So for instance, here's what I love about websites. We have great intentions and we don't always have the right clear vision. So it's okay to have a 404. It happens all the time. 404 basically means that someone clicked on a link that's broken. It no longer works for your site. But here's what I thought was interesting. This business actually decided that it was a good time to ask for the email to subscribe to their email newsletter. Not really the right timing there. I would probably suggest that that was on a different part of your site, and that the 404 really clearly redirected them back to your homepage. So maybe instead of enter your email here, it would say something like, let's take you back to the last page you were at, because that's really on us as the business owners or the creators of the website. It's on us to improve and make sure the client experience is clear. What's not on us is to ask the client to do anything beyond getting them back on track as soon as possible, especially with a 404. So let's talk about how you can do some of these things a bit more seamlessly. It's likely that you're using MindBody right now for scheduling. And I'm always surprised, as a MindBody expert, how many times I go to a site that's not utilizing branded web when it's likely a part of your already packaged relationship. So just to give you a high level, in case you're not aware, branded web are tools that provide these widgets and links that are installed directly to your website. What that means is it gives you the look and feel of a really well positioned site without taking them off of your website. What that does for you is it improves client conversion because you're able to get more data from your website. Let me pause and talk about that for a second. So if you're not currently using branded web, what typically happens with your user experience, if you follow it the way someone like me, a marketer, would, is that you can follow and track what a client does right up until the point where they make a buying decision, right? They sign up for that intro offer and they drop off of your data. And so you don't know if they've made a buying decision or not. Utilizing MindBody branded web, you're actually able to keep that client on your site longer, which not only gives you that level of data for conversion, but actually talking about those algorithms again, especially Google, they look at that. They look at something called client drop-off or bounce rate, and they're looking for sites that have consistently long website users. What it means is there's value on that site. So as long as you can keep your client on your website, there is a threefold benefit, including the fact that the client experience is so much better because they're not confused about where they're going and what is expected of them. So utilizing branded web can be a really great game changer for you setting your website up for success next year. And what I want to show you is even if you're using branded web, you're likely not using every element of it to your benefit. So everyone's probably quite aware, or at least have some level of understanding of the scheduling tool with branded web. It's by far the most prevalent that I see on websites. But let's talk about some other branded web widgets that are not often used. So once you click on the schedule, typically you'll see the cart. And again, that's probably the easiest, most consistent use of branded web. But did you know that there's ways to link clients directly to their cart? How about to get new clients registered before they ever sign up for a class? You can use that as a call to action if you're doing any sort of advertising. How about adding a buy now link anywhere with your trials, free offers, anything that gives people a chance to get to know you quickly, make it easy for them to make that decision quickly. And then also through your social media like Facebook. So I'm going to give you a couple of little glimpses into how you can do that. I like the registration widget a lot because it's great for someone who's not yet invested in your site. So again, if we're thinking about the client's, their journey, right, to get to know you, it really starts beyond the website. It starts with that first click to set up an account. And so by making this easy for them and integrated on your site, you're not only keeping their client data, enhancing the chance for them to convert, but you're also just making it synergistic for them to understand the next step. So notice here, I put a little screenshot of one that I thought was just really simple and well done with branded web. It just says, are you new to our studio? Register here. You get their basic information, which you can basically decide what's required or not required in your manager tools. And then you're able to even give them a thank you message, which basically can be a talk about your intro offer. So a great example of this would be, you drive someone to your site because you posted something really cool on Facebook. The first thing they see is, hey, have you ever been to our studio before? Register here and enter to win, your first week for only $10 as an example. That's your intro offer. Once they've completed this, you can actually have a pop-up message instantly come up that says, awesome, now it's time to get your 1 week for $10. Click here, put another buy now, right, branded web widget, and take them to make that decision. If you think about our industry, we are an industry of helping people make the right decision a lot faster, especially the fitness folks. So making it easy for them, encouraging and inspiring them, but also helping them to take that next step. It's not just pivotal for us, it's how you're going to take your business from great to better. Here are a couple other great examples of branded web that I don't see nearly enough. So the buy now widget that I was speaking about earlier, this is a great example of it. In fact, this studio went as far as even giving their promo code, right, for even more value add at the top. And then the buy now is next to every single pricing option. Pretty cool. Also on Facebook, using that Facebook widget, you're able to add your class schedule, event schedule. So that would be if you're having a teacher training, if you're hosting workshops or retreats, appointments, everything that you can think of that you would want to connect with someone about, you can actually host as a tab on your Facebook. Makes it really easy to point them in that right direction, tag them, helps them to make that decision a lot sooner. And then here's one I very rarely see, giving someone access to their cart so that they can kind of add up what they need. This is probably best used if you're going to start using promotional items, selling products, but I don't think that it's only limited to that. If you think about a client's experience, maybe for your business, there's something that they should buy when they first start out with you. I know in one of my businesses, wellness-based business, they have to use a certain, it's like a device in order to take the class, and they have to buy that before they come in. Could they buy it on site? Sure. But having a cart makes it really easy for us to say, you know, drop this into your cart along with your intro offer, and then you're all set up for your very first class. Exciting, easy, and really pulls everything together. So those are three really great, really simple ways that you can use the branded web that you already have. Now let's talk about how we can get traffic to your website, because I think that's actually just as important as what your website looks like and what tools you use. Of course, there's a couple here that you've heard about before, but I want to speak just high level on them so that you can understand maybe some things that you could do differently. So the first is search engine optimization. This is often misunderstood. Search engine optimization is actually not a front end trick, but it's a back end optimization of your website to help people to see it, to help the algorithm. So going back to that talk about Facebook and Google having a process for how they decide who sees what on your site. And it's actually something that's not done to the end user's eye. So if you've been around a long time like I have, I remember reading text on a website, and it was clearly being written for search engine optimization. It was like, if you are looking for, beauty studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, you found the right place. It was really awkward, if you remember. It was very braggadocious a bit, and it really didn't read well. And so that was, I think, a good attempt at trying to have great SEO. But what's needed is something back end. It's something that's done in the back of your site. Literally, if you're using something like WordPress, it's called your headings or your hyperlinks. And so this is something that's likely often done by a professional. It can be done by maybe you, the owner or manager, but it is a bit more specialized, and I would say that your maximization of your website is going to come from a professional doing this just due to speed and authenticity. So that's one example of how you can use SEO. Local listings really tie right into SEO. It's basically giving you visibility in your local market. Most fitness studios forget that we are local businesses. Most beauty bars, spas, salons, any type of client experience in the wellness industry is generally more important to be found locally than nationally, right? And so many times we overlook the ability to really hone in on that local listing online. One, because it does help with SEO, but two, it helps you to be found by the target audience, because your target audience likely lives in a certain geography. So a couple things to make sure of here. I think everyone knows to have a Yelp or have a presence on Yelp, but it seems really simplistic and often overlooked. Make sure your name, the address, the phone number, your website, those things are very clearly going to link to your site. And so make sure not only are they accurate, but they're the right link, the right information. For instance, I have a couple of clients that use a dedicated line for new clients, which means maybe on their Facebook and their Yelp, they use a dedicated phone number that not only tracks it, but also provides new client information versus just calling to schedule a class or an appointment for the second, third, fourth time. Another example of that is having a landing page that's dedicated to new clients, so that when you're driving people to your site, you're not just driving them to the whole site, which can be a little overwhelming and maybe not as focused, but instead you're taking them specifically to a new client page or a join page, something that basically says, we know who you are, we're interested in meeting you, and here's how to get a hold of us as quickly as possible so we can connect you into our studio. Really simple, and really great results can come from that. Search engine marketing. So this is where most people think of, Google, pay-per-click ads. And I'll be honest, it's a great way to drive traffic to your site, but it's not long-term. You're only visible on search engine marketing for as long as you are paying for ads. So when I think about the benefit of SEO, search engine optimization, versus SEM, search engine marketing, at its core, search engine optimization, SEO, is very back-end, but it's also very long-term. That means it takes a lot longer to rank, right? A lot longer to get found on the first page, which is 97% of all searches. But then it's also really important to understand, because it takes a long time to get found, it needs constant ongoing maintenance, which is why really a professional does it best. With search engine marketing, that's your pay-per-click ads. For as long as you're paying for traffic, it will send them to your site. But again, you want to make sure it's the right target client, maybe that it's in your budget or that it suits your needs. And something that I'm seeing in the wellness industry right now is actually that unless you have a competitor really spending money on pay-per-click, or you have a very niche audience that you can reach very distinctly, right now, maybe pay-per-click is not your best bet, but that Facebook marketing, Facebook advertising is. The difference between search engine marketing and social media marketing with regards to Facebook ads is that there's not intent on Facebook ads, which means you can cast your net a bit broader. You still need to be very specific, but it will help you to be found by people who may not yet be looking for you, which is, in my opinion anyway, an oftenly very good client for us in the wellness industry, since they don't know that they need us till they need us. And then finally, I've said this a couple of times now, but there are certain times when using a professional is really important, whether you're utilizing a business coach or a freelance website builder, or using Squarespace, which has been a really big tool, I think, that's come up in the last couple of years. There's always a time where something can be done either faster, with better best practices, or with a better client experience without taking up all of your time. And I think that's when it's the best fit for a professional. If you can do and feel good about doing it yourself, I think that's always a great place to start. But when you're looking to go maybe from great to better, it's time to get a second set of eyes. And I think that's actually very worthwhile. I'll give you an example of, well, are you going to build your home yourself because you built a treehouse back when you were 8? Or are you going to utilize like a really premium architect and construction crew to make sure that it's built for life and built really well so that you're able to enjoy it for a long time? And it's the same thing with your website. So I'm going to leave you with a couple tips and tricks, and then I want to open it up for the Q&A. But this is really going to help you plan ahead and maybe use some of these things that we've talked about today, or things that have kind of spurred up in your mind since seeing these opportunities, and really give you a direct call to action. So the first is to build a buyer persona. Let me tell you what that means. Remember that target client we talked about? I want you to know that target client at the level where you almost know them as a name, as an image, as a work that they do, as a neighborhood that they live in. And this is not about being exclusive, meaning not being welcoming, but it's actually about being more inclusive. There's a study that was done many years ago about people liking people who are like them. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think in our industry, it's actually a great opportunity to identify the person who really needs our services and pull them through as a client, right? Give them what they're looking for. If they're looking to lose weight, if they're looking to increase the way they look or improve the way they look in some way, they're looking to have peace or freedom, whatever it is that you have to offer. Finding the right buyer persona basically means finding the people that really need it, because then you're not selling at all. How about identifying your goals and really finding the digital marketing tools that you need? Now, hear my heart here. I love Instagram. It's probably my favorite way to be reached, which I'll share with you in a little bit. And it's definitely super fun, but it's actually not necessarily where you're going to get all of your client traffic from. So think about that. I think our industry has become really focused on the bright, shiny thing and not going back to basics and making sure that our website is consistent and has a really great user experience. And that's the same thing for our social media. So identify maybe those digital marketing tools that you need, but also that also need to be optimized. You may not need to be on Pinterest, right? You may not need to be on Twitter. And I think that that can be a very liberating thought, instead of thinking you need to be on every single social media and media platform, but instead that you're going to do what's best for your target market and your buyer persona. How about evaluating what you have consistently now? Something that I often do for clients is just providing that second set of eyes and saying, okay, so I love what you're doing here, but this can really be optimized for more success with pulling in new clients. I think having the mindset today, if I can leave you with this, is that if you're thinking of your website, think of your first-time visitor. Most times, that's how they're finding you. That's who's spending the most time on your site, and that's the area of opportunity to pull them in. So evaluate everything that you've got with that set of eyes. Then audit, right? Take note of the things that are going well. Maybe if someone on your team is doing this for you, or you're paying someone to help you, give them that kudos. but also look ahead and think about how you can do that differently, how you can optimize it better, or how you can automate that. I'm a big fan of planning your social media campaigns. It's not inauthentic to plan out what you're going to say for a month or a week. It's inauthentic to do something that doesn't really sit right with your core values or who your target audience or buyer persona is. So don't be afraid to plan this out and really be more intentional this coming year. And then finally, look at digital advertising as an opportunity for you. I think this year more than ever, I've had more people inquire about, can I run Facebook ads? Can I afford to? Does it make sense for my target client? And it's just something I'm very, very passionate about because of that. I would say on the broad stroke, most businesses in our industry need digital marketing. That's a big statement to make. But what I'm seeing more and more is high competition, right? High cost of doing business. And there's really a lack of differentiation for many of us in our markets. You can only be, and hear my heart, I say this with love, the 10th yoga studio in your area for so long before clients start realizing you're all the same. And you're not. But it's how we explain that, right? How do we connect with the right client that sees the differentiation and pulls that through? And I think that's what digital advertising and marketing can really do for you. So I'm going to leave it here so I can take your questions. I want to let you know that I am offering, really for anyone who's seen this or is interested in this, a free 2019 business plan, and you can do a 30-minute consult with me. You can find me on Instagram at KKFitCoach, also on Facebook. But I want to just kind of leave it here so I can answer your questions and know that if you have a need for kind of help in the marketing department, you want some coaching and consulting on how you can do it yourself better, which is one of my favorite things, or maybe you just need some templates to get this stuff kicked off right for the new year, I'm happy to help and I'm here for you. So let's take a pause here and let's see if there are any questions that I can answer for you.
Thank you so much, KK. Yeah, just a reminder to all of those that are attending, if you guys have questions, we have a Q&A box. Go ahead and submit those there.
And actually, Katrina, if you see them, would you mind reading them out to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I know it always takes a little bit for people to type them in. Can also check and see if we have any on Facebook too.
Okay, awesome. I know this is often a really overwhelming topic, and I'll just talk a little bit while we're waiting, but I always seen that business owners, they get really excited about this and then their eyes kind of glaze over because there's just so much it seems like to tackle. But I will say just starting with one of these for the new year is more than enough for you to kind of see what works for your business, really just kind of looking at what you need and what you're interested in and tying that together with something you can do is often a great first start. So don't be overwhelmed if that seemed like a lot of catchphrases and things that you're not super strong in.
So we do have one question specifically for you, KK. Sure. Where do they sign up for the 30-minute consult with you?
Oh, it's a great question. If you go to KK Fit Coach on Instagram and you click on the link, it'll say kkhart.youcanbook.me. You can actually sign up and put yourself right on my calendar there. And that's also on Facebook.
Great.
All right. kkhart.youcanbook.me.
Awesome. All right. Question from Alan. How much should a personal trainer budget for their first website?
Oh, I have a lot of questions for that, Alan. I would say if you're a personal trainer without like a brick and mortar studio space, perhaps doing something on your own may be more cost effective to start. There's some really good drag and drop sites out there. People seem to really like Squarespace. Squarespace can be really cost effective because you pay a flat fee every month and you can choose like a level of subscription. I'll tell you my favorite is still WordPress. And so maybe a budget for that, maybe about $1,000 would be fair to get a really well-working WordPress site up. With WordPress, you can use the MINDBODY widgets just like with Squarespace. But what I like about WordPress is you pay a flat fee, right? So like the web designers I use, you pay a flat fee and then you own that website for life. It's kind of like the difference between renting and owning a home. Not a great example, but what it will give you the ability to do is own your site. So it's more cost effective in the long term, but also make changes to it on your own since WordPress is extremely user friendly. with or without a web developer. So I'm a big fan of WordPress because of that. I think if you're feeling a little intimidated by using the back end of WordPress, then maybe something like Squarespace, which ends up being about the same cost-wise. It's just that you'll pay that for every single year that you keep it. That's the benefit of WordPress.
Great. So we have a couple of questions from people that have multidiscipline studios or businesses. How do they keep their information streamlined or provide the right information and keep a clear message? You know, should they
that is such a good question.
businesses or put it under one, have one website?
Really great questions. And actually, it's a bit dependent on how those different services flow together. It's a great time to schedule a consult. I can give you a little bit more directed info. But I would say on the whole, if they flow well together, for instance, I own a business that's both a fitness studio and a beauty bar in the same space. They don't always flow well together, but we have one dedicated landing page. It speaks about all the different offerings that we have. And then we have certain website flows, meaning certain things that lead to another. So for instance, the first thing we ask them is basically, what are you interested in? Are you interested in dance and fitness? Are you interested in, beauty and hair and makeup? Once they click on that, it's populated based on their choice. So I would say use your website to be almost like a funnel. Think about like one big broad statement to start on your homepage, and then each page start narrowing their view, because you'll learn more about what they want. So if they clicked on, for instance, with me, dance and fitness, then I know that that's the primary need that they have. Can we have, a little bit of information about other things that we offer? Sure. But clients know where to find other aspects of your site. What you want to do is focus them, give them the very next step. So for us, it's our intro offer, right? Try a week, $40, and then make it really easy for them to go ahead and take advantage of that very quickly. That works for most businesses that share kind of different services, but I can answer a bit more specifically if that's helpful.
Thanks. Okay, another good question that we have from Janine. How do you decide which social media platforms to use? Like, for instance, how would they know if Pinterest is right for a healthcare clinic?
Great question. I could do I could do a whole webinar on that. I would say one very important thing, and this will make sense, Janine, once you hear me say it: target client. So if you know your target client is spending more time on Instagram or Facebook or Pinterest, then maybe that's the first step. Really understanding them, right? Understanding what makes them tick. Why are they on Facebook versus Instagram? Are they like me? I'm an old millennial. It took a lot for me to get to Instagram, but now I really don't spend as much time on Facebook. So understanding your target client will really help you to make that first decision. The second decision, I would say, is to decide how they're going to reach you. For instance, one of the reasons why, no disrespect to Pinterest, but I don't believe it works for our wellness industry, is that it really isn't specific to local, meaning someone from Piedmont, North Dakota is also seeing the same the same Pinterest and not able to take action because they can't come in for a class, if that makes sense. So for me, I focus on things that, one, make sense for my target client, but then two, make sense regionally. So I'm hoping that makes sense, but really it's about what they're going to actually use. And I think that's where looking at your website data helps, because you can see where they came from. And then two, understanding that client buying persona, really sitting with your team and figuring out, who are they? What do they look like? What do they often do for a living? You can really figure out a lot about, how to reach them and how's best for them to reach you.
Great. Okay. Another question that we have here. Timothy's saying that he needs a website redesign, but all of the developers he's spoken to don't specialize in the beauty industry. How important is that when choosing a web designer?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good thought process, Timothy. I believe that's very important, especially if you yourself are not comfortable kind of art directing them or giving them the direction that they need for user experience. If you felt comfortable telling them exactly what you wanted laid out, it wouldn't matter as much. But my question back to you would be then, what's the purpose of that web designer? Because it's got to be that a web designer is building a site that makes sense for your first-time visitor. If they don't understand that clientele, they likely may build a really pretty site, but it may not be functional for what you need, which is client conversion. So I actually think that is really important. And I've got a number of web designers that I've worked with. I can always throw you a couple names if you want to shoot me a message. You can send me a message on Instagram.
Okay, another question from Angelique. She wants to start doing webinars through YouTube Live and pinpointed videos for nail products for professionals. Do you think doing them monthly would be a good start, or should it be weekly? Is there a great way or a great starting point to go from?
YouTube Live is actually still pretty in its infancy phase. Full disclosure, I don't know a ton about it. I know enough to be dangerous. I don't see it as a big taking off platform right now, which is why I haven't really invested a lot of time in getting to know it. I will say if you mimic a couple YouTube influencers that you like, that have a really good subscription base, you're likely in good company. So maybe if there's people that are already doing something, different, but in your space, that you're seeing how frequently they're putting out YouTube content. I can think of one right now. He puts that content weekly. He chooses a certain day of the week, and that's his day to push out new content. I think what matters more is that you're consistent. So however that may be, monthly, weekly, daily, and also that you're clear. So one thing that this influencer that I'm thinking of on YouTube does is he tells you, on Thursdays, you're getting a new video with this value. Click here to subscribe. So I think it's more important that you're consistent and clear about what you're offering. I don't think algorithmically right now it matters how much content you put out, but I know where your mindset is. It used to be that if you post 3 times on Facebook, more people would see you and that kind of mindset. And actually, all the algorithms, they took that away in the recent year or two. So I would feel really confident telling you to do what feels authentic, what you can do consistently, and let the rest kind of fall into place.
Awesome. Okay. Looks like we're getting pretty close to time here. So just one last question for you. If someone's just starting out for local SEO, for personal training services, where should they start?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm going to guess that they're just starting out, that maybe they don't yet have a website. So that is the first step. The reason for that is that your website is really your SEO, right? Once you set up the back end of that site, like I talked about, so that's your site headings, your hyperlinks, really the client flow of your site, that is what starts talking to the algorithms and starts crawling on your page and saying, okay, this is important for this person who's looking for personal training in Atlanta. So it really is getting a website up and running. There's a phrase we use in entrepreneurship. It's called the minimal viable product. And it can be a little bit overwhelming to think about when you're getting started. I remember 15 years ago when I got started, I'm a bit of a take the bull by the horns person, but even then I remember thinking, I don't know how this is going to work out. And so the best practice is to utilize the minimal viable product, which basically means put out the easiest, most effective website that you can to start. You can always build upon it. You can always improve it. But what you can't do is wait. So my recommendation is to put something out there that really makes sense, that looks good, and start building the SEO in the background, knowing that it's going to take a while for the website crawlers, right, for the algorithm to find you, and then for it to see that, okay, this is the best fit for this person. That can take 6 months to a year. So start now. That's the number one thing you can do. Start now, build your website.
Great. Well, I know there's some more questions from you guys. If you guys want to reach out to KK, you can always contact her directly and ask those great questions. She has a wealth of knowledge, obviously.